Lucien Hartmann had it all. His coffee may have been cold, but his empire was thriving. Just days away from marrying Europe's most sought-after supermodel, a single phone call shattered his world with the surgical precision of an emotional blow. "Good morning. Could I speak to Dr. Collins?" His tone was calm, almost rehearsed, but his heart was hammering in his chest as if he sensed what was coming. "One moment, please." The receptionist at St. Clair's Children's Hospital typed, unaware that on the other end of the line, fate was about to change. Lucien swiveled his chair around and stared out over London from the top of Hartmann Tower. The city looked small from there, as controllable as his empire. He had made billions from a college idea that had turned into a global giant. But no amount of victory could erase the one scar that time could not heal. Olivia Collins. The voice that answered froze everything around. "Dr. Collins." Lucien swallowed. "Olivia, it's me." "Lucien." Silence. A silence that brought 6 years of absence and unanswered questions. "Lucien Hartmann." "What a surprise," she said, her voice thick with caution. 6 years, is that it?" 6 years, 2 months, and 17 days. The number slipped out before he could stop it. Too precise. Too revealing. "Why are you calling me?" The coldness was a shield, but he knew that voice inside. "I'm getting married," he revealed, sliding his finger over the gold envelope on the table. "I wanted to ask you personally." On the other side, silence returned. He could almost see her eyebrow arching. "You're going to invite me to your wedding?" The tone of disbelief was everything he had expected and wanted. "Yes. Talia and I are gathering people who have impacted our lives. And you were important to me." It was a lie. The call wasn't about kindness. It was the first step in a subtle plan of revenge. Supermodel Talia Blake wasn't just his fiancée. She was the perfect showcase for his success. The stunning woman standing next to the brilliant billionaire. The ideal image of success, something Olivia refused to believe he could achieve. "Thank you for the invitation," she finally replied. "I'll try to make it." Perfect. He hung up, satisfied. But Lucien Hartmann had no idea what he had just unleashed. The truth was about to emerge, and she was 5 years old, with intense brown eyes, and a smile that reminded him of his. Olivia Collins dropped her phone onto the table as if it had caught fire. Her fingers trembled slightly. She had spent the last 6 years rebuilding her life, day by day, and now Lucien Hartmann invited her to his wedding. A nervous laugh escaped. It was the kind of irony that fate seemed to love. In the colorful office of the children's hospital where she worked, children's drawings covered the walls. On the bookshelf, 3 photo frames seemed to look at her with tenderness and demand. 3 boys, identical, with intense eyes exactly like Lucien's. Matthew, Noah, and Elias. 5 years, 3 miniature worlds, and a secret she carried alone. "Dr. Collins, your next patient is in room 4. Nurse Teresa said through the half-open door. "Thanks, I'll be right there." But Olivia didn't move. Instead, she walked over to the bookshelf. She picked up one of the picture frames. She ran her fingers over her children's smiling faces. Lucien didn't know. He didn't know anything. She remembered the email she had sent a year after the boys were born. Photos, scans, heartfelt words, all carefully worded. The response was quick, but not from him. "Please stop trying to contact me. Lucien has moved on. A paternity allegation now would damage his image and the stability of Hartmann Technologies." Signed, Sofia Delgado, interim CEO. After that, Olivia gave up. If he allowed his mentor to discuss such intimate matters, then there was clearly no room for 3 children in his life. The cell phone vibrated. Message from Mom. I can pick up the boys at 4 p.m. I'll take them to the park." She replied in the affirmative and put her cell phone aside. The invitation to the wedding still seemed to echo. Should she go? And if it was, should I take the boys? Peaceful life he had built? As these questions tormented her, flashes of the past returned. The nights of study with Lucien, the promises exchanged, the growing distance as he immersed himself in work. "There is no room for us in your life, Lucien." Those were the last words she had said to him before she left. At the time, he tried to convince her, to promise her, but she knew the pattern well. He would always ask for just a little more time. Now, 6 years later, he was the man he claimed to have won, a billionaire with a digital empire and a wedding on the horizon. But he was also the man who didn't know he had 3 children, and she needed to decide if she was ready to change that. Sofia Delgado's office was too quiet. Overlooking the River Thames, the penthouse apartment reflected the same rigor she brought to her business. Impeccable, quiet, calculated. In his right hand, he held a glass of red wine. In his left, his cell phone. On the screen, a brief message from an old contact. "She's going to the wedding, and she's not going alone." Michael Green. Sofia let out a long sigh. She always knew this day would come. With slow steps, he crossed the apartment and entered his studio. There, everything had its exact place: folders, files, confidential contracts. From a locked drawer he took out a thick envelope. On the cover were just 2 letters. O.C. Olivia Collins. She spread the contents out on the table. Letters never delivered. Printed. Emails. Ultrasound pictures. One in particular showed 3 tiny, star-shaped embryos. Sofia ran her hand over the image with an unreadable look. For 6 years, she had guarded this secret with tooth and nail. When Olivia first reached out, Hartmann Technologies was on the verge of its first billion-dollar deal. The risk of scandal, a young CEO embroiled in a paternity case, was a cliff Sofia wouldn't allow. Or at least that's what she told herself. The truth was deeper. She was afraid that Lucien would change course. She was afraid that the boy genius she had bet everything on would throw away his future to become a doting family man. The doorbell rang. Sofia hid everything back in the drawer, turned the key, and went to the door. Lucien was there, discomposed. His shirt was slightly wrinkled. His eyes were burning. "She has children," he said bluntly. "Triplets. 5 years old." Sofia forced neutrality. "And why does that surprise you?" "Because the timing matches our breakup exactly," he replied. "What if they're mine?" Sofia poured 2 glasses of whiskey. But he didn't want a sedative. He wanted answers. "Did you know?" The accusation was in his tone and in his eyes. Sofia took a deep breath. There was no denying it anymore. "Lucien," she said, her voice low. "Sit down. There's something you need to see." Lucien sat on the sofa without taking his eyes off Sofia. She returned from the office with the thick envelope and silently placed it on the coffee table. "What is it?" he asked, though his instinct already knew. "Open," she said simply. His hands hesitated for a second before untying the flap. Inside was the evidence. Letters addressed to him. Printed. Emails. Ultrasounds. Pictures of the boys as babies. This is impossible," he muttered, picking up an ultrasound with 3 small dots lined up. Olivia tried to contact her. "Many times," Sofia confessed, "but I intercepted everything." Lucien looked up with suppressed anger. "You impersonated me? I did what I thought was necessary to protect you and the company." The fury in his eyes was silent, but relentless. "You had no right," he said coldly. "You were young, impulsive. You were 1 step away from turning your idea into an empire. Imagine what would have happened if this had come to light in the press. Lucien did not respond immediately. Anger was growing like a fire, but greater than it was the emptiness. "I have children," he whispered, as if realizing something irrefutable. "You would have given up everything for them," Sophia argued, almost pleading, "and maybe lost everything. What we built. Your legacy." "They are my legacy," he replied firmly, "and you stole 6 years of it." Sophia took a step forward. "Lucien, think rationally." "No," he interrupted. "I've thought rationally for too long." He collected the letters and photographs. He put everything back in the envelope with precision. And then, with deadly calm, he declared, "You're fired." Sophia stood still. "You can't be serious." "I am more serious than I have ever been." She tried to come closer, but he stopped her with his gaze. "You betrayed my trust, on the most personal level possible. Nothing justifies that." Without another word, he walked to the door. "Lucien, please," she said, her voice shaking now. "I did this for you." He stopped at the door. "No, you did it to maintain control." And he left, taking with him the envelope and the weight of a life he never knew existed. The beach was nearly deserted that afternoon. The gentle breeze ruffled Olivia's hair as she watched the 3 boys run across the sand, laughing loudly at the little discoveries they made with each wave. "Look, Mommy," cried Elias, the youngest for a few minutes, showing off a huge shell. "It looks like a giant's house." She smiled, sitting on a flower tablecloth. Matthew and Noah were competing to build the biggest sandcastle. A perfect setting, like a living painting. Your cell phone vibrated. "Unknown number." She answered cautiously. "Dr. Collins?" The voice was deep, almost hesitant. She didn't need to ask who it was. "Lucien." "We need to talk," he said. There was something in his tone, a mixture of urgency, emotion, and regret, about our children. She remained silent for a few seconds. "How did you know?" "It's been 3 days. I found out by accident. Then I confronted Sophia." Olivia closed her eyes. So it was true. He never knew. She intercepted everything. Lucien continued. "Emails, letters, even photos. I had no idea." A wave of emotions washed over her. For years, she believed he had simply turned his back. "I thought you chose to ignore me," she said with difficulty. "Never, Lucien," he replied, his voice shaking. "I would never have done that." She looked at the boys in the distance, now stacking shells like trophies. "Why did you invite me to the wedding then?" Lucien took a while to respond. "Pride. Anger. I wanted you to see everything I've built without you." "What now?" she asked, her voice firm. "Now I just want to meet them," he said. "I want to be a part of their lives." Olivia took a deep breath. She had been dreaming about this moment for so long, but now that it was finally happening, it felt scarier than she had ever imagined. "They have names," she said. "Matthew, Noah, and Elias." Lucien was silent for a moment. "They're beautiful," he said. "Like you." She couldn't help but smile shyly. "I want to meet them. When you think the time is right," he added. "Maybe tomorrow, in the afternoon, at the cafe next to the Central Park," Olivia suggested. "I'll be there." When they hung up, Olivia stood looking out to sea. The boys were running towards her with their hands full of little treasures. "Look what we found," Matthew said breathlessly. She hugged them tightly. Soon, they would meet the man who gave birth to their eyes, their laughter, and perhaps the future they had been waiting for. The Café Belvedere, in the sunniest corner of the park, was discreet and cozy. Lucien arrived 30 minutes early. He was more nervous than he had ever been at a business meeting. He was wearing dark jeans, a light-colored dress shirt, and sneakers, somewhere between a CEO and a man trying to look approachable. His watch read 2:56 p.m. when he saw them. Olivia appeared, walking with firm steps, a boy on each side. The third ran ahead, amazed by a dove crossing the sidewalk. Lucien stood up immediately. The air seemed to disappear for an instant. 3 smaller versions of himself. Same hair color, same dark eyes, same curious expression. "Lucien," Olivia said as she approached. She was calm on the outside, but he could see the slight tremor in her hands. "Hello," he replied, his voice soft. "It's an honor." The boys watched him carefully. "Hi," the first one said, his posture serious. "I'm Matthew. I'm 5 years old and I like dinosaurs and books." Lucien shook the small hand respectfully. "Nice to meet you, Matthew. I like books too." The second boy stepped forward excitedly. "I'm Noah. My mom said you work with smart computers, like the ones in Iron Man." Lucien smiled for the first time. "Yes, something like that. We create programs that learn over time, like you, when you discover something new." Noah's eyes widened. "Wow, so you're a genius." "Maybe a little," he replied, laughing. The third boy, Elias, was further away. Olivia knelt beside him. "Would you like to say hello to Lucien, dear?" Elias looked at her, then at Lucien. With short steps, he approached. Without saying a word, he just extended his hand. Lucien knelt down to his level. "Hello, Elias," he said politely. "I'm so pleased to meet you." Elias didn't answer, but held her hand for a few seconds. Then he let go and ran to the nearest playground. "He's the most observant," Olivia commented. "It takes time to trust, but once he does, that's forever." Lucien remained kneeling there for a moment longer. He was getting to know his own children. Every gesture, every look, seemed to echo within him with an uncontrollable force. They walked together to the park. Noah pointed out squirrels, Matthew recited fun facts, and Elias walked silently beside Lucien, not touching him, but close enough to be noticed. When they reached the benches near the lake, Lucien sat down and watched the boys run across the grass. "They're amazing, Olivia," he said. "You raised them so well, all by yourself." She took a deep breath. "It was difficult, but I never regretted it." Lucien looked at her with sincere eyes. "I lost 6 years, but I won't lose any more." 2 days later, Lucien pulled up in front of Olivia's house. It was a modest 2-story building with small bicycles leaning against the front lawn and toys scattered across the grass. He was holding a bag with 3 packages, one for each child. At the door, the 3 of them were waiting for him, as if they had been watching him from a window. "You're here," Noah said, already making way for his father. Matthew consulted the clock on the wall, visible from the entrance. "It's exactly 6:01 p.m. You're 1 minute late," he announced seriously. Lucien laughed, taking the gift out of the bag. "Then I'll make up for it with this." Each boy received a package. Matthew received a set of rare minerals. Noah received a roaring dinosaur with a motion sensor. And Elias received an illustrated sheet music book for beginners. "We're supposed to play together," Lucien said, kneeling beside him. "Thank you," Elijah replied quietly, but there was a sincere gleam in his eyes. "Come in," Olivia said, smiling from the doorway. "Dinner is almost ready." The room was alive, full of drawings on the walls, toys in the corners, and sounds of childhood in every corner. Lucien looked at everything with the strangeness of someone who came from a world made of marble, glass, and silence. There it was different. There it was real. During dinner, spaghetti with meat sauce and chocolate mousse made by Donna Irene, Olivia's mother, the boys talked nonstop. "I want to be a scientist," Noah said. "I'm going to program robots. Just like Dad, Matthew replied. I just want music, Elias murmured with a small smile. Lucien listened to every word as if listening to a new melody. The naturalness with which they called him Daddy almost broke him inside. After dinner, Elias took the book to the small piano in the corner of the room. Will you help me play? He asked. Lucien sat down beside him on a stool. The other two came to watch in silence. For 20 minutes, father and son slid their fingers over the keys, making mistakes, laughing, trying again. It was imperfect, but it was exactly what he had always wanted, even without knowing it. When Olivia called for a bath and rest, the questions came. Are you coming back tomorrow? Are you going to sleep here one day? Are you going to take us to the zoo? Lucien promised to come back on Saturday. We'll see the pandas and the crocodiles, he said, hugging the three of them. Olivia walked him to the door. There, in the yellow light of the porch, he looked at her with a kind of gratitude that words could not express. Thank you, he said, for not cutting me out of their lives, even with everything. She hesitated for a second. They deserve to know their father, and you deserve to know them. Lucien nodded. I just want to do the right thing, even if I started late. Olivia gave a small smile. They forgave you the second they saw you. Kids do that. It's up to you not to waste it. Lucien walked down the steps feeling that, for the first time in years, he was walking home. On Friday morning, Hartmann Technologies looked like a cog in the middle of a revolution. Since Sofia Delgado's departure, rumors had been circulating around the halls, but no one knew that the biggest announcement was yet to come. Lucien walked through the reception with determined steps. He gathered the directors for an extraordinary conference. I am restructuring my role in the company, he announced. I will remain as chairman, but the day-to-day operations will be with Laura and Michael. A surprised silence filled the room. I need time for another mission, he continued. One that began 5 years ago and that I only just discovered. I'm a father of triplets, and I want to be there. Some discreet smiles appeared, others of pure respect. Later in his office, Lucien picked up the folder where he kept the drawings his children had made. Simple figures scribbled with love. One showed him holding each boy's hand. Another showed him at the piano with Elias. In the third, he was depicted as a caped superhero between a dinosaur and a stack of books. He photographed them all. Before leaving for dinner that Saturday, he received a text from Olivia. They have prepared a surprise. Don't be late. He smiled. He arrived at exactly 6 p.m. The house smelled of fresh pasta and tomato sauce. The boys were waiting for him with a presentation. Noah showed off an experiment with magnets. Matthew showed off his rock sorting system. And Elijah played the first part of the melody they had rehearsed together by himself. Lucien almost cried, but he held it in, to live the entire moment. After dinner, Olivia accompanied him to the garden. They stood side by side, silent, like 2 pages of a book that had yet to be written. You are changing everything, she said tenderly, for what matters most. They changed everything, Lucien replied, and maybe you too. She looked at him carefully. There was time, there were wounds, but there was also room for new beginnings. Lucien then handed her an envelope. I want to show you something. Inside, an official document, Fundação Novos Comuncicos, aimed at single mothers and fathers, with legal, psychological, and financial support, entirely funded by him. That's wonderful, Olivia said, gushing. You did all by yourself, and no one should have to carry that burden like that. I want to help other people too. She smiled, a different smile, lighter, more genuine. The boys ran to them for one last hug before bed. Good night, Dad, they said in unison. Lucien closed his eyes for a second. Nothing, absolutely nothing compared to this. As he drove home, he glanced at the seat next to him. His children's drawings, now framed, were there. The fortune he had built was great, but his true legacy began now, in the love that came from three small voices. The past had been painful, the present unpredictable, but the future, the future smelled like home, and he was ready.